The silence of the northern winter. Imagine. You wake inside a long, wooden hall buried in snow. The walls creak in the night wind, smoke from the central fire stings your eyes, and every breath comes out as a white cloud in the freezing air. The straw beneath you is damp, your clothes smell of sweat, smoke, and wet wool. You think life among the Vikings was all raids and glory? In truth, surviving even a single winter night in their camp was a battle in itself. The silence of the northern winter is not gentle. It is not the hush of snow falling on a quiet street, nor the soft peace of a modern countryside under frost. It is a silence so deep it feels alive. The fjords are frozen mirrors stretching into the dark. The forests are locked in stillness, every pine bough heavy with snow, each branch groaning under its weight. Even the sea, the wild northern sea that crashes and roars through the rest of the year, has fallen into a sullen, icy muttering, waves slowed by frost, ice floes grinding like millstones in the black water. Inside the Viking camp, the world narrows to the circle of firelight. Outside, the night stretches endlessly, 14, 16, even 18 hours of darkness depending on the season. The sun rises only briefly, a pale orange smear across the horizon, and then sinks again, leaving the world to the dominion of cold and stars. You shift on the straw, listening. A cough from the far end of the hall. The scrape of a boot on wood. The hiss of snow melting where it drips into the fire. That is all. The silence presses back. Even the animals, goats, cattle, sheep, are hushed, huddled together for warmth, their breaths steaming in the dimness. Step outside the longhouse with me. The door groans, its iron nails rimmed with frost, and immediately the air cuts your face like a blade. Your eyelashes freeze together in moments, your nostrils sting with the bite of iron-cold air. The snow crunches like breaking glass beneath your boots. Look around. The camp is half buried, roofs humped like sleeping beasts under drifts. The palisade is crusted white, spears of ice hanging from its timbers. Beyond, the forest looms, dark and endless. Have you ever stood in a cold so deep that sound itself seems to vanish? That is what it is to be here. The only noises are your own body, the rasp of breath, the crackle of leather, the throb of blood in your ears. You begin to understand why the old sagas spoke of winter as a living adversary, a frost giant pressing against the walls of men's halls, testing their strength, seeking the smallest crack to slip inside. For the Vikings, this was not poetry. It was survival. Each winter meant hunger, sickness, and the grinding endurance of endless dark. To live through it required preparation, skill, and no small amount of stubbornness. Firewood had to be chopped and stored in vast piles before the snows came. Barrels of fish and salted meat were stacked like treasure in storerooms. Every crack in the longhouse had to be stuffed with moss, wool, or tarred cloth to keep out the drafts. And still, the cold found its way in. Picture a young thrall, an enslaved man taken in a raid, sent out to break ice at the river so water could be hauled back in buckets. The ice is thick as a man's arm. He swings the axe until his hands blister, then shovels up the frozen chunks, his breath a white fog against the dark. Around him, the camp sleeps uneasily, warriors dreaming of fire and blood, children curling tighter against their mothers, dogs shifting restlessly near the doors. The silence is never truly empty. Listen long enough, and you begin to hear things in it. The distant crack of a tree splitting under the weight of frost. The moan of wind sweeping down from the mountains. Sometimes, though you would never admit it, the whisper of voices, as though the land itself were speaking. The Vikings believed in such things. They said the dead wandered more freely in winter, when the veil between worlds was thin. To sit alone in the dark too long was to invite company you did not want. And so, the camp clings to fire. The fire is life. Without it, the silence of winter would claim everything. Men huddle around the hearth, feeding it with driftwood, pine, or whatever can be found. Sparks jump upward, caught in the smoke hole above, and vanish into the night. The light flickers on scarred faces, on iron helmets hanging from beams, on shields stacked against the walls like silent guardians. Every eye is drawn to the flames, for in them lies warmth, food, and the illusion of safety. Do you feel it? The way your fingers ache even near the fire, the way your breath fogs and lingers, refusing to disperse. Imagine lying down at last, wrapping yourself in a cloak stiff with salt and smoke, your head on a sack of straw, your body pressed against your kin for warmth. Sleep comes in uneasy stretches. You wake to stir the fire. You wake to shift position, to stamp feeling back into your toes, to push away the dog that has crawled onto your chest for heat. Outside, the snow continues to fall, silently, endlessly, burying the world. This is the silence of the northern winter. It is not gentle. It is not peaceful. It is a silence that waits, that tests, that dares you to endure until the sun returns. And tomorrow, you will wake again in this hall, the cold a little deeper, the stores a little smaller, the dark a little heavier. The Vikings sang of gods and battles, but their greatest enemy was always winter. The silence holds. But slowly, as you and I step out into the frozen dark together, the shape of the land reveals itself. It is not enough for the Vikings merely to endure winter. First they must choose where they will endure it. That choice is the difference between life and death. Imagine standing on the edge of a fjord in late autumn, the last gulls wheeling overhead, the wind off the sea turning your fingers numb. The ships, dragon-proud and proud in summer, are now hauled up on the shore like tired beasts. They need shelter too, for a winter storm can splinter oak as easily as bone. And so, before the first snows bury the land, the question rises, where will the camp be built? The chieftain and his men walk the shoreline, boots crunching on frost-hardened earth. They know this land intimately, reading its signs like a book. The first rule is water. A river, a spring, a fjord inlet, these are lifelines. Without fresh water, a winter camp is already lost. Look with me down at the edge of a stream. The surface is beginning to glaze over with ice, but beneath, the water runs clear, tumbling over stones black with cold. The men kneel, cup their hands, and drink. If the taste is sharp and clean, the place is marked with approval. If it tastes of salt, or iron, or rot, they move on. For water is not just for drinking. It must soften dried fish, brew ale, wash wounds. A camp without water is a grave. The second rule is shelter from the wind. This, too, you can feel now as we climb the slope together. Look at the fjord below, a glittering scar of ice, the sea beyond thrashing with winter storms. The wind here cuts straight from the north, dragging with it sleet, snow, and death. A camp set here in the open would be scoured clean by January. So the Vikings look for what they call a lee. Perhaps a hill thick with pines to the north, their dark needles heavy with snow. Perhaps a cliff face, a natural wall of rock that turns aside the cruelest gales. Stand behind such a shelter, and you feel it at once. The wind drops, your cloak no longer thrashes, the breath you exhale lingers in the air instead of vanishing in an instant. This, too, is marked. But there are dangers hidden in shelter. Too close to the trees, and wolves may come. Too near the cliffs, and avalanches threaten. And so the chieftain weighs every choice. Safety from one danger may invite another. Third rule: food. A winter camp cannot depend on what is stored alone. The forests must yield deer, hare, and boar. The sea, if it remains partly open, must yield cod, herring, seals. Even the smallest bounty, a trap set for foxes, a line dropped through the ice, can mean the difference between life and starvation when the barrels run low. Imagine following the hunters as they push through the snow, searching for tracks. Here, the cloven print of a reindeer. There, the delicate marks of ptarmigan wings brushing the ground as they lift into the air. Every trace is read like scripture. If game is scarce, the camp will starve. If it is plentiful, the spirits have favored them. And then comes defense. The Vikings never forgot that men, not just winter, were enemies. A winter camp must be strong against raiders, against rival clans, against outlaws who haunt the dark months like wolves. So the land is studied with a warrior's eye. Is there a ridge where watchmen may stand? A river bend that forces attackers into a narrow crossing? A slope that lets defenders rain spears and arrows down upon the foe? Every natural advantage is weighed, for once the snow is deep and the nights long, there will be little time to build more than wooden palisades. Better to let the land itself be the wall. Now imagine the moment when the chieftain stops. His men gather round, stamping their feet, their beards stiff with frost. He lifts a hand, points to the hollow below. There is the stream, running fresh even under ice. There is the pine wood to the north, breaking the worst of the wind. Deer tracks crisscross the snow nearby. The fjord lies beyond, its water dark, its sheltering arms curving like a shield. Here, he says, and in that word lies fate. For once the camp is chosen, it is not easily left. The snow will close the passes, the sea will freeze, and the men, women, and children of the camp will live or die by this choice. The work begins at once. Men seize axes, their iron edges flashing dull in the weak winter light. They stride into the pines, striking at trunks, chips of wood flying, the sound echoing through the frozen stillness. Imagine it, the steady rhythm of axe blows, the grunt of breath, the thud of trees toppling into the snow. Others strip the branches, dragging logs back to the chosen hollow, their shoulders straining, boots sliding on ice. Fires are lit to soften the ground, to burn away roots where posts must be sunk. Smoke rises into the cold sky, the first sign that men have claimed this place. Women, too, move swiftly. They gather reeds and rushes, cutting them with knives, tying them into bundles to thatch the roofs of huts. They scrape hides clean, stretch them on frames, for use as windbreaks and coverings. Children gather sticks for kindling, their small hands red with cold, but their eyes bright with the knowledge that this labor means survival. Night falls quickly. The firelight glows on faces, on sweat turned to frost in men's beards, on the shining eyes of dogs who prowl at the camp's edge. A circle of rough shelters rises where before there was only snow. They are crude, poles lashed together, roofs half-thatched, walls of logs stacked hurriedly. But they promise more than the open sky. Inside, the air grows thick with smoke, and bodies press close together. You and I step back into the dark, looking at this camp. It seems small, fragile, a clutch of fire and timber set against a wilderness vast enough to swallow it without effort. And yet here the Vikings will endure. Here they will laugh, curse, quarrel, and sing through the long dark. Here they will pray to gods who stride across winter skies. And here, in the silence of the northern night, they will face what no enemy's sword could match, the relentless patience of winter. Do you see how every choice carries weight? A stream for water may also be a path for enemies. A forest for shelter may conceal wolves. A cliff for defense may shadow the camp in endless cold. This is the gamble of every wintering place, the wager between life and death. And once chosen, it cannot be undone until the thaw returns. So the camp is marked. Fires burn. Smoke curls into the star-heavy sky. And as you watch, you realize this, more than raids or plunder, was the heart of Viking life. To master the sea was glory. To master winter was survival. And as the night deepens, you hear the first voice raised in song. A low chant, rising and falling, telling of gods, of heroes, of ships sailing into sunlit fjords. The men join in, their voices carrying out into the frozen dark, a promise to themselves and to the land. We are here, we endure. Tomorrow, the palisades will rise. Tomorrow, the camp will take shape. But tonight, beneath the wheeling stars, the choice has been made. The fires burn low, their smoke drifting upward in pale ribbons that twist in the cold air. Around you, the beginnings of the camp stand half-formed, rough huts, lean-tos, piles of timber waiting to be shaped into something more permanent. But a Viking camp is never safe without its teeth. To endure the winter is one thing. To endure it in a land where other men lurk in the shadows, where wolves pace the tree line and rival clans sharpen blades just beyond the fjord, that requires walls. Wooden defenses. You can almost hear the thought in the chieftain's voice as he surveys the hollow they have chosen. We will not sleep like sheep waiting for the wolf. We will sleep behind spears of wood. And so, before the hall is finished, before the stores are fully laid in, the men turn their labor to building a palisade. Picture it, warriors with axes slung across their backs, trudging into the forest at dawn. Their breath comes out in white plumes, their boots crunch through the icy crust of snow. They walk between the trunks, choosing each tree with care. A crooked one will not do. A rotten one is death waiting to happen. They look for the straight, tall pines, trees that will stand like spears when stripped and planted. Each man swings his axe with a rhythm born of necessity, the sharp crack of iron biting wood, the groan as the tree begins to lean, the final thunderous crash as it falls into the snow. The forest echoes with this labor. Chips of pine fly, sap runs sticky and fragrant, coating gloves and cloaks. There is no silence here, only the song of men shaping the land into their fortress. Dogs circle at the edges, barking as trunks topple. Ravens, those black watchers, flap from branch to branch, curious at the sudden violence done to their woods. Dragging begins. Teams of men loop ropes around the trunks, leaning into the strain, pulling the logs back toward the camp. Their shoulders burn, their legs sink into snowdrifts, their breath hisses in effort. Younger boys are set to strip branches with smaller hatchets, their faces red with cold but glowing with pride that their labor too is part of survival. By noon, the first pile of logs rises beside the camp. Long, straight timbers, their ends sharpened with axes until they gleam pale against the dark bark. Each one will be a tooth in the mouth of the wall. The ground itself must be broken to receive them. Here the men take iron spades, hacking at the frozen earth, loosening it with fire if need be, burning brush in a trench until the frost relents, then digging while the ground is still soft. Into these wounds of earth the sharpened posts are driven. The sound of it fills the air, the thud of wood striking dirt, the groan as logs are levered upright, the curses of men as they strain against stubborn weight. Step closer, and you feel the ground tremble with each impact as posts are rammed home with heavy mallets. One by one, a ring of sharpened timbers rises around the camp, encircling it like the ribs of some vast beast. This is not mere carpentry. It is ritual, almost sacred, for these walls are more than wood. They are a promise to every man, woman, and child within that they are not prey. Without them, sleep is fragile, every howl of wolf or whisper of footstep a threat. With them, the night seems a little less endless. Still, a palisade alone cannot hold. Gaps are sealed with woven brush, lashed tight with rawhide strips. Ditches are dug outside the wall, their edges freezing into jagged lips of ice. Stones are piled where the ground is too soft to hold timber, creating a foundation that no flood or frost can easily shift. And at the gate, the single opening into this new fortress, the strongest timbers are bound together, their tops sharpened into cruel points, their bases sunk deep. A door is hung, not delicate but brutal, thick planks lashed with iron, heavy enough that two men strain to push it wide. Imagine standing now just beyond the wall, looking back at the camp through its teeth of pine. The smoke of fires curls above the palisade, the sounds of life within muted. From here, it looks like a beast crouching in the snow, bristling, wary, ready to bite. But wooden defenses are not only for men. They are for wolves too. The beasts prowl the forests in packs, lean with hunger, their eyes glinting in the firelight at night. A single wolf is dangerous. 10 are death. The palisade keeps them at bay, their bodies circling, their howls rising like a chant in the dark, but their fangs never touching the flesh within. To hear those howls and know the wall stands between you and them, that is the difference between terror and grim endurance. Rival men, too, are kept at bay by the sight of sharpened posts. A raider creeping down the fjord shore, seeing the firelight behind walls, must think twice. Attack here, and you face not only the cold but the fury of men defending their winter den. A palisade tells the world, here is no easy prey. Here is a camp that bites back. Inside the wall, the longhouse rises, steadier now, its beams lifted with care, its roof taking shape. But always, the work returns to the defenses. Trenches deepened. Posts replaced if they wobble. Watched platforms lashed to the inside of the wall so a man can climb and see beyond the firelight. Every evening, the chieftain walks the perimeter, his cloak snapping in the wind, his hand trailing along the rough wood. He knows that behind these posts lies the survival of his kin. He knows, too, that if they fall, the camp will fall with them. And so, the wall becomes not just a defense but a rhythm of life. Men sharpen the tips of posts until they gleam white against the night. Boys carry stones to reinforce the ditches. Women weave brush and branches into gaps, their hands raw from splinters. Each act is a prayer, unspoken but understood. Hold fast. Protect us. Keep the dark at bay. Now stand with me in the night. Snow drifts down, soft and relentless, muffling the world. The palisade rises black against the whiteness, its points jagged, cruel, beautiful in their own way. Within, fires glow. Outside, the forest looms. A wolf howls. The sound rolls across the snow, chilling the blood. But the wall stands. And because it stands, the people within can draw closer to their fires, can tell their sagas, can sleep a little easier. The wooden defenses are not grand stone walls. They will not stand for centuries. By spring, some posts will already rot, their bases gnawed by damp. By next winter, they will need to be rebuilt. But for now, they are enough. Enough to mark a circle of safety in a land that gives none freely. Enough to remind every man who steps through that gate that though winter is vast, though night is endless, though enemies lurk unseen, this place is claimed, defended, held. And so the camp takes its shape, teeth bared, heart burning within. Tomorrow, new work will rise around the fire, the shaping of the longhouse itself, the hearth at its center, the place where warmth and danger mingle. But tonight, as you stand within the circle of sharpened pine, you feel for the first time that the camp breathes. It is no longer just a scattering of huts. It is a fortress. A living thing, bristling against the silence of the northern winter. The sharpened palisade stands, a ring of teeth bristling against wolves, raiders, and the howling void of the northern dark. Inside, the fires smolder low, sending smoke in wandering spirals through the brittle air. But walls alone are not enough. A camp is not truly a camp until it has a heart, and that heart is the longhouse. Without it, the warriors would sleep scattered in huts, their strength divided, their warmth wasted. With it, they gather together in a single hall where the breath of many becomes heat, where laughter and sagas rise like sparks into the rafters, and where the fire at the center binds them in both survival and story. The building begins with timber, always timber. The same axes that carved the palisade now bite into thicker trees, chosen with care for their straightness and strength. Imagine men trudging through snow to the forest edge, their eyes measuring trunks as if they were warriors themselves, too thin, and the weight of the roof will snap them, too crooked, and the beams will warp. They felled the chosen giants with slow, brutal rhythm. Each blow sends resinous chips flying, the scent of pine sap clinging to hair and beard. When the trees fall, the ground shudders, and the forest seems to groan as if some ancient spirit has been wounded. The logs are dragged back by teams of men and oxen, their boots slipping on icy earth, the beasts snorting steam into the frozen morning. Each timber is stripped, smoothed, and notched by hand. Iron tools ring against the wood, echoing like hammers striking shields. It is backbreaking work, But there is urgency in every swing, for until the hall is raised, the camp is exposed. The skeleton of the longhouse rises first. Upright posts are sunk into the earth, their bases charred in fire to resist rot. Crossbeams are lashed across them, forming a ribcage against the sky. Slowly, the shape takes form, long, narrow, its sides curving slightly inward as if to embrace the fire it will one day hold. The rafters groan as they are set in place, heavy timbers lifted by ropes, heaved upward by chanting men who haul in unison. With each timber locked into place, a shout rises, not just of effort but of triumph. The roof is thatched with reeds and turf, layered thick to keep out rain and snow. The smell of damp earth mingles with smoke as clumps of frozen sod are beaten into place, their roots binding together into a living quilt. Snow settles on the roof almost at once, its weight pressing down, but the beams hold. And in this burden, the hall grows stronger. Step inside now, through the narrow door. Duck your head, you feel the threshold low against your back. That, too, is no accident. The Vikings built their doors low so that any man entering would bow, whether guest or enemy. It is a subtle command, a gesture that turns pride into humility in a single motion. Within, the hall is dim. The only light comes from the fire pit in the center, a long trench dug into the earth and lined with stones. Smoke writhes upward toward the smoke hole in the roof, but much of it lingers, hanging in the air, stinging the eyes, curling through hair and clothing until everything carries the scent of fire. The walls are of heavy planks, their cracks stuffed with moss and clay. Tapestries, if the camp is wealthy enough, are hung to keep out drafts and to tell stories, woven scenes of gods battling giants, of ships riding storm seas, of heroes whose names taste like iron on the tongue. Along the walls are benches and sleeping platforms, covered in furs and straw. Warriors roll themselves in cloaks and lie shoulder to shoulder, their breath mingling, their snores rising like a second chant above the fire. Families cluster in corners, children curled against their mothers, dogs sprawled as living blankets. Privacy is a concept unknown here. Warmth is worth more than solitude. Every sound is amplified in the hall. The crack of firewood splitting, the cough of a man half asleep, the hiss of snow melting on hot stones. At night, when the winds claw at the walls and the world outside shrieks with cold, the hall is its own universe, humming with life. Imagine sitting on the bench, your back against rough wood, your feet stretched toward the fire. The heat burns your shins, but your shoulders remain chilled. Smoke scratches your throat, but the glow of the flames lulls you into something close to safety. Meals are taken here too. Picture great pots suspended over the fire, their contents bubbling slowly, fish stew thick with barley, strips of dried meat softened in broth, perhaps a rare chunk of seal or bear if the hunters are lucky. The air grows heavy with the scent of fat and smoke, with the faint tang of ale ladled from wooden barrels. Men eat with knives, scooping with their fingers, passing chunks of bread so hard it must be softened in broth before it can be chewed. There are no fine manners here, only the urgency of filling bellies against the winter hunger. Yet the hall is more than shelter, more than a place to eat and sleep. It is the stage upon which the soul of the camp performs. When the fire roars and the bellies are full, the skald, the poet, rises. He lifts his voice, reciting sagas older than any man present, tales of Odin and Thor, of ships that cross seas wider than dreams, of battles where warriors met their fates with laughter on their lips. His words weave through the smoke, casting spells stronger than any sorcery, binding the weary men in pride, reminding them why they endure. Sometimes the skald sings of those who are present, of the chieftains' victories, of the bravery of hunters, of the women who keep the camp alive with steady labor. These songs are currency as rich as silver. To be named in a saga is to live beyond death, to be remembered long after the fire is ashes. But there are darker nights too. When sickness creeps into the hall, the longhouse becomes heavy with silence broken only by coughs and moans. The fire burns low, its smoke thick, and fear settles in like frost. Then the hall feels less like a sanctuary and more like a tomb. Every shadow seems deeper, every crack of timber in the wind a reminder of fragility. Still, the longhouse endures. Its very design is stubbornness made wood, long, narrow, simple, strong. Archaeologists uncover their remains even now, dark lines in the earth marking post holes, fragments of charred timber, shards of pottery left behind in the soil. From these, we glimpse the reality, halls that could stretch 40 meters long, holding dozens of souls, their smoke rising day after day, season after season. Step back outside with me, into the snow. Look at the hall as it stands, its roof hunched against the storm, its smoke twisting upward like a beacon. It is not beautiful in the way of stone cathedrals or palaces. It is beautiful in its purpose. Every beam, every plank, every sod of turf pressed into place is a declaration. We live here. We endure here. This place is ours. And as night falls, the door creaks open. Warriors step inside, ducking low, stamping snow from their boots. Behind them the gate closes, the palisade looms, and the camp is sealed once more in its wooden heart. The hall glows like an ember in the endless cold, the place where life is gathered and guarded. Tomorrow, the fire at its center will blaze brighter. Tomorrow, it will burn not just for warmth, but for survival, for in the heart of the longhouse, the flame is both comfort and danger, salvation and threat. Tomorrow, we will stand beside it together. The longhouse hums like a living beast. Its beams creak, its roof sighs beneath the snow, its walls murmur with the breath of men and women pressed close together. But the true pulse, the thing that keeps this great wooden body alive, lies at its center. The fire. Always the fire. Step closer with me. The pit glows with sullen coals, sparks drifting upward like tiny spirits freed into the smoke. Around it, the camp breathes in rhythm, slow snores, shifting limbs, the occasional muttered dream. But the fire never sleeps. Even when it shrinks to embers, someone tends it. A boy stirring the ashes, coaxing life with a puff of breath. A weary woman rising from straw, laying a stick across the pit. A warrior, drunk on ale, kicking in a log before staggering back to his cloak. Because if the fire dies, the hall dies with it. The pit itself is simple, a trench dug into the earth, lined with stones that crack and hiss when the flames lick them. Above it, the smoke hole gapes in the roof. In fair weather, smoke streams through it. But in winter storms, the draft fails. The air thickens, eyes water, throats burn, and every cloak smells of smoke so dense it seems woven into the wool. Yet none complain, for smoke is better than cold, and blackened beams are better than brittle bones. Now kneel with me here by the fire. Hold your hands above it. Feel how the heat strikes your palms, fierce and immediate, while your back still aches with chill. The fire never warms the hall evenly. Those closest to it roast, their skin prickling, while those on the benches shiver under furs. The air is always a shifting tide of hot and cold, comfort and ache. Still, they gather here. Always here. Food comes from this fire. Hear the sizzle as fat drips from a skewer of meat, the bubble of stew thickening in its pot. Imagine the smell, fish rich with smoke, onions softened until they dissolve, herbs gathered in autumn fields releasing their bitter tang. A rare feast might mean a haunch of boar, its skin blistering over flames, the air heavy with grease. Children edge close, their mouths watering, until a sharp word drives them back. For hunger is constant, and fire is the only cure. But food is not its only gift. The fire is a forge. Warriors kneel beside it, heating blades until they glow, hammering them on stones, the clang echoing in the hall. Arrowheads are straightened, spear tips hardened, iron rivets clenched. The fire gives tools, weapons, and the means to keep them. Without it, swords dull, armor fails, nails loosen. Without it, a Viking is barehanded against the world. The fire is also medicine. Stones are heated, wrapped in cloth, pressed against aching joints. Water is boiled for poultices, herbs steeped until the steam smells sharp as pine. A woman lifts a pot, its vapors curling around her, and holds it under the nose of a coughing child. "Breathe," she murmurs, her voice blending with the hiss of steam. Even sickness must bow before the fire's heat. Yet danger walks hand in hand with this gift. The hall is dry, its beams thirsty for flame. A single spark leaping into straw could turn the camp into an inferno. And so the fire is both guardian and threat, a god that must be appeased, never insulted. Children are warned not to run too near, not to throw scraps into its mouth without permission. Men spit into it only in jest, and even then uneasily. The fire is alive, and they know it. At night, the fire becomes a storyteller's stage. The skald sits where the glow limns his features, where every flicker of flame makes his eyes burn brighter. His voice rises, carrying sagas of gods and monsters, of storms and voyages, of lovers who defied fate. Each word is a spark, leaping from mouth to mind, catching fire in the imaginations of those who listen. Faces glow in the firelight, rough features softened by wonder. The flames dance, and in them the warriors see Thor's hammer, Odin's one-eyed gaze, the prow of a ship rising over a storm wave. Sometimes the fire becomes a court. The chieftain sits at its head, his shadow stretching tall upon the wall. Disputes are aired here, judgments passed, punishments decreed. The firelight catches on steel as a man swears loyalty, his oath made sacred by the glow. A broken word spoken here is no small thing. It is treachery witnessed by flame, a betrayal that the gods themselves will remember. Listen now to the hall at midnight. Most lie sleeping, their breaths heavy. But still the fire whispers. The coals shift, sighing. Sparks leap, tiny dancers rising and fading. A log cracks, startling a dog from its dreams. In the shadows, a woman rises quietly, adding fuel, her face lit gold as though by dawn. She watches the flames a long time, lips moving in silent prayer, not to the gods, perhaps, but to the fire itself. Because in this endless dark, it feels like a god. And the fire is ritual. In midwinter, when the nights stretch longest and the cold presses hardest, offerings are cast into it. A splash of ale, soaking into the coals. A scrap of meat, its fat sizzling as it burns. Sometimes blood, the sacrifice of a goat or pig, its lifeblood hissing where it touches the embers. The hall fills with smoke, with chanting, with the belief that by feeding the fire, they feed the gods who watch from beyond the night. Even dreams belong to the fire. Men stare into it until their minds wander, until they see shapes in the flames, ships, beasts, faces. Some claim these visions are omens, glimpses of what the gods intend. Others shrug and call them tricks of smoke. But all watch. Always they watch. Step back with me now. Stand at the edge of the hall. See how every eye, waking or drowsy, strays to the fire. How every body, huddled under furs, leans toward its warmth. How every story, every song, every judgment, every prayer circles back to it. The longhouse may be walls and roof, the palisade may be defense, but this pit of flame, is the true heart. Without it, the camp is a hollow shell. With it, even in the deepest dark of the northern winter, the hall breathes, beats, and endures. The fire is life. And as the snow falls heavier outside, as the wolves howl beyond the palisade, as the fjord freezes inch by inch, the fire at the heart of the hall burns on. Tomorrow, it will cook meager provisions, thin ale, barley bread, dried fish. Tomorrow, it will be both feast and famine. But tonight, it is simply alive, holding back the endless dark. The fire burns steadily now, its glow painting the beams of the longhouse with restless light. Around it, the warriors stretch out, bellies warm, cloaks drawn close. Yet hunger always lingers, even in moments of comfort. The flame is only as generous as what is placed into its mouth. And in the depths of winter, What is left to give is meager, always meager. Picture the longhouse in the blue-gray dawn. A pot hangs over the coals, its contents thick but plain: fish stew, barley gruel, or perhaps little more than hot water flavored with bones. A woman stirs slowly, her hand heavy with weariness. The smell is thin, not rich like a feast but sharp and faint, just enough to remind the stomach of what it lacks. Children crowd close, their eyes fixed on the pot, waiting for their turn with the ladle. Each portion is small, parceled carefully, for the stores must last until spring. The provisions are the true measure of a camp's strength. No warrior's axe, no wall of timber, no boast of courage will matter if the food runs out. In autumn, the people dried fish until it hung in leathery strips, salted meat until the brine burned their hands, and stored root vegetables in pits lined with straw. Barrels of herring, casks of ale, sacks of barley, all set aside with care. But winter is long, and each day cuts into the hoard like a knife. Ale, once drunk freely in celebration, is now thin, stretched with water until it barely carries the taste of grain. Bread is coarse and dark, ground from barley or rye, sometimes bulked with ground bark when grain runs low. Meat is rare, eaten only when a feast demands it or when an animal grows too weak to live. More often, it is fish, cod dried until it cracks, herring smoked hard as wood. Each bite must be softened in broth before it can be chewed. Imagine chewing such food with teeth already worn and cracked from years of hard bread and gritstone flour. Every meal is labor, jaw aching, belly only half satisfied. Yet each swallow is precious, for to waste a crumb is to spit in the face of survival. And there is hierarchy, too, in these meager meals. The chieftain and his chosen warriors eat first, their bowls filled more generously. The skald receives a portion as well, for his songs feed the spirit if not the body. Women and children wait, their shares smaller, their hunger greater. It is not cruelty, it is necessity. The strongest must remain strong, for they hold the walls, swing the axes, guard the night. Yet the quiet injustice of it gnaws at the hall as surely as hunger gnaws the belly. On lean days, meals are made of what can be found. Porridge of oats, if any remain. Cabbage, sour and limp but still edible. Turnips hard as stones, boiled until soft. Some say the Vikings were mighty feasters, gorging on roast ox and rivers of ale, but those were rare nights, songs for the sagas. The truth is here: thin stew, black bread, a sliver of dried fish. Survival, not splendor. Now walk with me outside the hall, into the camp where the stores are kept. Barrels stand under hides, their rims crusted with salt. Sacks of grain are tied tight against rats, though the beasts gnaw anyway, their teeth leaving ragged holes. A pit dug in the frozen ground holds turnips and cabbages, layered with straw. Each time the lid is lifted, frost creeps in, stealing a little more life from the food within. The people count each barrel, each sack, each root. They count, and they worry. Because hunger is not just an emptiness of the belly. It is a shadow that creeps into every thought. Men grow short-tempered, quarrels spark easily. A careless hand that takes too much, a child who spills her portion, a rat that slips into the stores. These can ignite fury hotter than any fire. Hunger makes men cruel. It makes them desperate. And in the long winter, desperation is never far. Yet there is also resilience. Women brew thin ale from whatever grain remains, their hands steady even when their bellies rumble. Hunters risk the cold for a hare, a fox, a bird caught in a snare, small creatures, but enough to stretch the pot another night. Children scavenge, digging through snow for nuts left by squirrels, breaking ice to catch minnows. Every scrap matters. Every morsel is victory. And still, feasts exist, though rare. When Yule comes, the people slaughter an animal, perhaps a pig, perhaps a cow too frail to survive the winter. The blood hisses as it spatters into the fire, the meat roasts on spits, the fat drips and sizzles. For one night, the hall smells rich, bellies are filled, and ale flows freely. Songs rise, laughter shakes the rafters. It is a brief defiance, a torch lit against the dark. But when morning comes, the feast is memory, and the thin broth returns. Look again at the faces in the longhouse. Warriors gnawing tough bread, children sipping thin stew, women chewing slowly, making each bite last. Their bodies bend under hunger, but their eyes burn with something harder. Endurance. The belief that spring will come, that fields will green, that ships will sail again. The provisions are meager, but the will to survive is not. And so the fire burns, the pot simmers, and the people eat what little they have. Each day, a little less remains. Each night, hunger prowls the hall like a wolf. Yet still they endure. For endurance is the true feast of winter, and meager provisions are its bitter bread. Tomorrow, the talk will turn to storage and survival, to salted barrels, frozen pits, and desperate measures. Tomorrow, we will walk into the deeper shadows of scarcity. But tonight, here by the fire, we taste what they tasted: thin ale, black bread, a sliver of dried fish. Enough to live. Enough to carry on. The stew pot empties, bowls are licked clean, and still hunger lingers like a ghost in the hall. Every eye strays, again and again, to the stores. Because survival in the Viking winter is not decided by today's meal, but by what remains hidden in barrels, pits, and cellars, what has been salted, dried, buried, or preserved against the long night. Storing for survival is not a choice. It is the difference between endurance and death. Step with me into the cold outside, the snow crunching beneath our boots. The air is sharp, biting, the kind that seizes your lungs if you breathe too deeply. Beyond the longhouse, shapes loom under heavy hides and frozen turf. This is the treasure of the camp, food put away when the land was still green. To waste even a handful is sacrilege. The first place we come to is the rack of dried fish. Imagine long poles strung with endless rows of cod and herring, their bodies stiff as boards, their eyes glassy, their scales dulled by frost and smoke. The smell is sharp, acrid, but to these people it is the smell of survival. Each strip can be chewed like leather, softened in ale or broth, stretched to feed a family. In autumn, when the seas boiled with fish, men worked day and night to gut, salt, and hang them. Women tended fires in smokehouses, fanning coals, shifting racks so every side was preserved. All that labor hangs here now, silent and brittle, waiting for the pot. Next, the barrels, heavy casks sealed with tarred cloth, their staves bound tight with iron hoops. Lift a lid, and the briny tang of salt stings your nose. Inside, pork and beef lie packed in layers, each piece white with salt crystals. The meat is pale, hard, almost unrecognizable, but safe from rot. To eat it, the women must soak it in water for hours, scraping off brine, boiling until it softens. Even then, it tastes more of salt than flesh. But it fills the belly, and that is all that matters. Grain is guarded even more jealously. Sacks of barley, oats, and rye sit in the driest corners, tied shut, raised off the ground on wooden slats to keep damp and rats away. Yet rats always find a way. Look close, and you'll see gnawed holes patched with leather, traps set nearby with scraps of fat. Each kernel is life. Without it, no bread, no porridge, no ale. Men count the sacks by touch in the dark, whispering the numbers like prayers. Root vegetables lie buried in pits, dug deep into frozen earth. Straw is layered above them, hides stretched over the openings, snow packed down tight. When the cover is lifted, a breath of earthy scent escapes, the smell of turnips, cabbages, carrots sleeping through the frost. Some are already soft, their skins sagging, rot spreading. These are cut away, the good pieces saved. Waste nothing. Always waste nothing. And then there are the desperate stores. The things saved not for use, but for when the barrel is almost empty, when the sack is almost bare, when the pit holds only shriveled scraps. Bones gnawed clean but boiled again for broth. hooves cracked from arrow. The last crusts of bread dried into rusks, stored until they are so hard they must be shattered with a hammer. Even dogs are not spared. When hunger bites deepest, their lives, too, may end in the pot. No one speaks of it, but everyone knows. Imagine the rituals around these stores. Each morning, the women check the pits, the barrels, the sacks. They whisper the tally to the chieftain's wife, who whispers it to the chieftain. He decides how much to portion, how much to save. Too generous, and the camp feasts today but starves tomorrow. Too strict, and men grow weak, unable to hunt or defend. It is a cruel balance, one that weighs on every hand that ladles stew, on every mouth that swallows half satisfied. And there is danger in the stores themselves. A cracked barrel may leak brine and spoil the meat within. A wet sack of grain may sprout mold, poisoning those who eat it. Vermin creep in, gnawing holes, leaving droppings. Imagine the fury of discovering a rat's nest in a sack of barley, the curses, the swift blow of a boot, the bitter knowledge that what is ruined cannot be replaced until spring. But storing is not only about food. Firewood is a store too, piled high in great stacks, each log split and dried before the snow fell. A hall without wood is as doomed as a hall without bread. Each night, logs vanish into the fire pit, each dawn the stack grows smaller. Men count those, too, measuring them against the weeks of winter. And there is a storm more subtle still, trust. Each person must trust that the others will not steal, will not lie, will not take more than their share. For one thief can doom a camp. That trust is guarded as fiercely as the food. Anyone caught pilfering from the stores will face punishment swift and brutal, flogging, exile, or even death. Better to lose one than to risk all. The walls of the longhouse are strong, but without discipline, hunger would tear the camp apart from within. Still, there are moments of small mercy. A hunter returns with fresh game, and the meat joins the stores, delaying the slow reckoning of empty barrels. A fisherman cuts through the ice and pulls up a net heavy with cod, adding to the racks. A woman finds forgotten apples, shriveled but sweet, buried in straw. Each small victory is celebrated, not with feasts, but with sighs of relief, with laughter that rings a little freer in the smoky hall. Step back now and look at the stores as the Vikings saw them. Not as food, not as wood, not as scraps of meat or sacks of grain, but as time. Each barrel, each sack, each pit is not a thing, but a measure of days. This one will last a fortnight. That one, perhaps a month. The grain, if rationed tightly, until the first shoots of spring. The firewood, if burned sparingly, until the thaw. Every item is a clock ticking toward survival. And so, the camp watches the stores as a man might watch the horizon for dawn. With dread, with hope, with the knowledge that without them, the night will never end. The longhouse glows faintly behind us now, the fire at its heart still alive. The palisade stands firm, its teeth bristling against wolves and men alike. But survival depends less on walls and weapons, and more on these hidden treasures buried in the snow, sealed in wood, salted in barrels. This is the true war of winter. Tomorrow, there will be sagas told, dice rolled, games played to push back despair. Tomorrow, the people will laugh, even in hunger, for laughter too is a kind of store. But tonight, as you stand among barrels and pits, smelling brine, smoke, and earth, you understand what survival means. It is not glory, it is not plunder. It is salt. It is grain. It is wood. It is endurance made flesh. The stores are counted, the firewood stacked, the salted meat checked for leaks. The pit of roots is covered again, and the longhouse door creaks shut against the snow. For tonight there is enough. For tomorrow, perhaps there will be enough. But beyond the grim arithmetic of survival, the Vikings knew a deeper truth. A body may endure on meager food, but the spirit needs more. Without laughter, without stories, without play, winter becomes a tomb long before it becomes a grave. And so, When the wind shrieks around the walls and hunger gnaws, the camp turns to games and sagas. Step with me back into the smoky glow of the longhouse. The fire crackles low, its coals painting every face with red light. Warriors sprawl on benches, children curl under furs, women mend clothing with needles of bone. Then a man produces a small leather pouch. He shakes it, and the rattle of carved pieces fills the hall. Dice. At once, heads lift. The pouch is poured out onto a board scratched with runes, and the game begins. The dice are simple, knucklebones of sheep or goat, carved and marked. Some are cubes of wood or antler, their corners rubbed smooth by years of handling. Wagers are made, a strip of dried fish, a scrap of cloth, perhaps a promise of a favor to be collected later. The game is loud, full of laughter and curses. Warriors shout as the dice tumble, fists slam the table, accusations of trickery fly. For a moment, hunger is forgotten, replaced by the heat of chance. Even children crowd close, eyes wide, memorizing every toss, every jeer. But dice are not the only game. Boards appear too, Nefatiful, the king's table, played on grids with carved pieces. One side defends the king, trying to escape, while the other surrounds and traps him. Warriors argue strategy, comparing the game to real battle, mocking each other's mistakes. To lose a game is humiliation, to win is bragging rights until the next match. These boards are precious, passed from hand to hand, carved with care during brighter days. Their presence is proof that even in the darkest night, the mind hungers for play. Now listen. The laughter fades, the dice are gathered, the board set aside. The fire is stoked, sparks leap upward, and the skald rises. His voice is low at first, carrying only to those nearest. Then it grows, weaving through the smoke, filling the hall. He begins with old tales, the Eddas, the sagas of gods and giants, of Thor battling the Midgard serpent, of Odin giving his eye for wisdom. The children sit wide-eyed, the warriors nod, the women pause in their sewing. The fire seems to bend toward his words, as if it too listens. Then he shifts. He sings of heroes long dead, of battles fought generations past, of voyages to strange lands where the sea boiled with storms. He names ancestors, their deeds remembered, their courage made immortal by his tongue. To be spoken of here is to live again, if only for a night. The dead breathe in the smoke, their spirits summoned by sound. And sometimes the skald weaves the present into his sagas. He praises the chieftain for his wisdom in choosing the camp, mocks a warrior for losing too many games of dice, teases a child who once fell asleep in the snow. Laughter follows these jests, but beneath them lies pride. To be part of a story is to matter, to be seen. The hall becomes a tapestry of words, every person woven into it, every name glowing in the firelight. The sagas are not only entertainment, they are instruction. In them, men hear how heroes met death without fear, how women held fast in sorrow, how tricksters outwitted the strong. The tales teach courage, loyalty, cunning, and endurance. They bind the camp together, reminding them that their suffering is not unique. Others endured. Others triumphed. So shall they. Games and sagas mingle with song. A warrior plucks at a harp, its strings humming, filling the hall with melody. Voices join, rough but strong, echoing against the beams. Some songs are of joy, others of mourning. Some are chants to ward off fear, their rhythm steady as the beat of a drum. Together, they turn the hall into something more than shelter. It becomes a place where despair is held at bay by sound, by laughter, by the weaving of memory. And there are other diversions, quieter but no less vital. Wrestling matches by the fire, two men grappling until they collapse in laughter, the crowd roaring. Story contests, where children boast of imaginary deeds, cheered as though they were warriors. Riddles passed around, their answers clever or crude, sparking laughter. Even simple mimicry, imitating the voice of a rival, or the howl of a wolf, draws smiles. Step back now and look at this scene. The hall is poor in food, poor in comfort, but rich in sound. The dice clatter, the harp sings, the skald chants, the laughter rises. Outside, the snow presses close, the wind howls like an enemy at the gate. But inside, spirits rise. This is the shield that no axe can split, the will to laugh, to play, to remember. Tomorrow, hunger will gnaw again. Tomorrow, fevers may rise, the cold may bite deeper. But tonight, the Vikings play games, tell sagas, sing songs. They defy winter not only with walls and fire, but with joy. And as the hall settles into silence, the embers glowing low, you realize that this, more than any weapon, is their strength. The ability to turn despair into laughter, hunger into song, and the endless dark into stories that shine brighter than flame. Tomorrow, though, the camp will wake to another enemy, not boredom, not despair, but sickness. The cold and damp creep into bones, fevers rise, coughs spread. Tomorrow, the sagas will give way to groans, and the fire will be less a stage and more a sickbed. But for now, in this moment, the games are played, the sagas sung, and the hall lives. The laughter fades, the dice are gathered, the harp strings fall silent. One by one, voices sink into murmurs, then to the quiet rhythm of breathing. The sagas echo only in memory now, and the hall settles under the weight of the night. But not all silence is peace. Listen closely. A cough stirs in the shadows. Then another, harsher, deeper, rattling like stones in a jar. Soon the sound spreads, a chorus of throats raw with smoke and cold. And you realize, the Vikings' fiercest enemies are not always wolves or rival warriors. The most relentless foes slip in quietly, unseen, carried on the breath of the living. Cold, damp, disease. Step into the air outside with me. It is sharp, bitter enough to make your teeth ache. Snow drifts against the palisade, piling higher with each gust. The longhouse roof groans under the weight. The fjord lies silent, a black sheet of ice stretching into the dark. Here in the north, the cold is not a backdrop. It is a predator waiting, watching. Every breath you draw here is a negotiation with frost. Every dawn that rises without a body stiff in the straw is a victory. The longhouse, for all its warmth, is no escape. Inside, the smoke lingers, irritating throats, searing eyes. The air is damp with breath, with sweat, with steam rising from wet cloaks hung to dry. The ground is straw laid over earth, and when the snow melts from boots, the floor grows soggy, then moldy. Children crawl and play on it, inhaling spores, their skin breaking in rashes. The cold presses in through cracks, the smoke presses down from above. Between them, sickness thrives. Listen again to the coughing. You hear the difference. Some coughs are sharp, quick, irritation from smoke. Others are heavy, wet, pulling from deep in the chest. That is worse. That is sickness that clings, that lingers, that spreads. In this crowded hall, one sick body means many. The Vikings knew it. They saw it year after year. They named their fevers and chills, cursed them in sagas. Sometimes they believed them to be the work of Draugr, the restless dead, or of dark spirits slipping through the smoke hole at night. Sometimes they blamed angry gods, punishing the camp for neglect of sacrifice. But whether they called it curse or fate, the result was the same. Children wasted, warriors grew weak, the old and frail slipped away quietly under furs. Picture a woman kneeling by the fire, her child in her lap. The boy's skin is flushed, damp with sweat though the air is cold. She dips a cloth in warm water, presses it to his forehead. His breath rattles, shallow and quick. She whispers charms, half prayer, half plea. Around her, others glance and look away. They know what such coughing means. They have seen it before. And it is not only sickness of the lungs. Frostbite creeps in silently, numbing toes and fingers until blackness sets in. A warrior who guards too long on the palisade may stumble back into the hall with hands stiff and useless, flesh already dying. If he is lucky, the damage is small, fingers lost, but life kept. If unlucky, infection follows. Without herbs, without the surgeon's knife, without knowledge of cleanliness, a wound festers. The stink of rot fills the hall, and death comes creeping. Stomach sickness, too, runs through the camp. Water drawn from the stream may be fouled by waste, by animals, by decay. Boiling is a defense, but when fuel grows scarce, not every pot can be purified. Stomachs cramp, bowels loosen, strength drains away. Such illnesses strike cruelest in winter, when the body cannot spare any loss. And still, the cold itself is a sickness. It seeps into bones, slows blood, steals warmth from the inside out. Men wake stiff, their joints aching, their chests heavy with phlegm. Children cry in the night, teeth chattering, lips blue. The fire burns, yet it cannot reach every corner, cannot drive out the chill that hides in stone and wood. To live here is to be gnawed constantly, from within and without. Yet there are remedies, as much ritual as medicine. Herbs dried in summer are steeped in hot water, yarrow, thyme, angelica, sipped slowly, prayed over. Steam baths are built where stones are heated, water splashed, and the sick are made to sweat the poison out. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it only weakens further. Bloodletting is tried, the cut made with a sharp knife, the illness thought to drain with the flow. Amulets are hung, charms whispered, the gods invoked. All are attempts to hold back what no wall can stop. And when remedies fail, there is only endurance. The sick lie on straw, tended by kin. Songs are sung to comfort them, sagas whispered so they do not feel forgotten. When death comes, it is accepted with the same grim nod as hunger or frost. The body is carried outside, laid on a pyre or buried beneath the snow. The living watch the smoke rise, feel the cold settle heavier, and turn back to the hall. Survival leaves no time for lingering grief. Still, courage is found even in this. Imagine the warrior who rises coughing, spitting blood into the fire, but still takes his turn on watch. Imagine the mother who wakes through the night, feeding her child broth sip by sip, even when her own strength is fading. Imagine the elder who insists on eating less, giving his portion to the young, knowing he will not see the spring. These quiet acts are sagas too, though no skald may sing them. Step into the hall again now. The fire burns, smoke curls upward, children sleep fitfully under furs. The coughing continues, a grim refrain. Yet voices still murmur. Dice still rattle. Songs are still sung, though softer. Even in sickness, life persists. The longhouse remains what it must, not just a shelter from the cold, but a defiance of it. Outside, the snow deepens, the wind howls. Inside, the people endure. They have no choice. For winter is long, and sickness is part of its rule. To survive it is not to avoid it, but to bear it, to hold on until the thaw. And tomorrow, when the coughs quiet for a moment, when the fire flares bright, the camp will turn to discipline, chores, guard duty, punishments, for even sickness cannot excuse idleness. Winter is too cruel for mercy. Tomorrow, the hall will hear not sagas but the chieftain's commands. The coughing still lingers, heavy as the smoke, but dawn comes all the same. Pale light seeps through the smoke hole, tracing the shapes of beams, of faces turned in uneasy sleep. The fire is stoked again, thin broth set to boil, the smell sharp and unsatisfying. Yet before bowls are filled, before dice rattle or sagas stir the air, another sound rolls through the longhouse, the chieftain's voice. Low at first, then rising, firm as iron striking iron. It is the voice of order, of command, of discipline. Because in a Viking winter camp, survival depends not only on food and fire, but on rule. Without it, the camp would fracture into quarrels, theft, and despair. With it, the people endure. Discipline is the unseen wall inside the palisade, the law that binds men tighter than ropes. And it is harsh, because winter is harsh, and nothing less will hold. Step with me into the morning. The chieftain stands near the fire, cloak heavy on his shoulders, axe in hand, not raised in threat, but carried as a symbol. Around him, men gather, women pause in their work, children hush. His commands are clear, without flourish. Guard posts must be manned, wood gathered, snow cleared from the roofs, the stores checked. Each task is assigned with precision, and each man or woman bows their head in acceptance. To refuse is unthinkable. To falter is dangerous. The guards take their places first, climbing to platforms inside the palisade, stamping their feet against the cold. Their eyes scan the tree line, the fjord, the frozen paths. Even when wolves prowl or raiders are only rumors, the watch must never fail. Sleep is no excuse. Sickness is no excuse. The camp lives because someone is always awake, always watching. Others move to chores. Some split wood, their axes ringing against frozen logs. Some haul water from the stream, breaking ice with poles, their hands numb as they fill buckets. Women mend torn cloaks, patch boots, scrub pots. Children are sent to gather twigs, to sweep straw, to carry messages. Everyone works. To be idle is to betray the hall. But discipline is more than labor. It is punishment too. Imagine a man caught stealing from the stores, slipping meat from a barrel, thinking no one will see. He is dragged before the fire, the chieftain's gaze heavy upon him. The hall falls silent, every ear straining. The punishment is swift, for hesitation weakens authority. Perhaps lashes with a whip, the sound cracking like ice breaking. Perhaps the stripping of his weapons, humiliation before his kin. If the theft was great, exile into the snow. And exile in winter is death. The lesson is burned into every watching eye. No one steals from the camp. Not once. Drunkenness, too, is punished. Ale is precious, not to be wasted on stupor. A man who drinks too deeply, who stumbles when he should stand, is mocked, restrained, sometimes beaten. Not because drinking is sin, but because weakness endangers all. A guard who sleeps, a warrior too dull to raise his shield. These are cracks in the wall that discipline must seal. Quarrels are inevitable. Hunger sharpens tempers, cold gnaws patience. A careless word, a lost game of dice, a jostle at the fire, and suddenly fists fly. But here too, discipline rules. The chieftain or his chosen men step in swiftly, pulling fighters apart, dragging them before judgment. Sometimes the quarrel is settled with fines, a portion of food given up or service owed. Sometimes, if honor is stained, a duel is allowed, weapons drawn, watched carefully, ended before death if possible. Discipline does not forbid anger. It channels it, controls it, ensures that the hall's strength is not wasted on itself. Even the rhythms of daily life are discipline. Meals at set times, no matter how thin. Watches rotated, never neglected. Tasks repeated until they become instinct. Men know where to stand, where to sit, how to keep their weapons close. Women know when to cook, when to mend, when to tend the sick. Children learn early to obey, to fetch, to stay out of the way when voices rise. These routines hold the camp steady, like ropes holding a ship against the pull of tide. And underlying it all is fear. Not fear of the chieftain's wrath alone, but fear of what happens when order breaks. They all know the stories. Camps that starved because men stole, halls that burned because fire was left untended, villages that fell to raiders because guards slept. Every man has seen frost take a life, hunger hollow a belly, sickness spread unchecked. The discipline is harsh, but the alternative is harsher. Yet there is more than fear. There is pride too. To endure the rules is to prove strength. To take lashes without a cry, to stand a frozen watch without complaint, to share food without protest, these are marks of honor. A man disciplined is a man forged like iron. A woman disciplined is a shield against despair. Children raised in this order grow into warriors and mothers who can survive what others cannot. Discipline is not only control, it is identity. Now imagine the hall in the deep night. The fire glows low, most lie asleep, but the guard is awake, pacing the palisade. He is cold, hungry, weary, but he does not leave his post. He does not falter, because he knows the eyes of the hall are on him, even in dreams. He knows that tomorrow, the chieftain will ask, and he must answer. He knows that to break discipline is to betray not only himself, but every soul within the walls. That knowledge keeps him upright when his body begs to rest. Step back with me now. Look at this camp, ringed by sharpened wood, its longhouse glowing faintly in the snow. It survives not because of walls, not because of fire, not because of stores alone. It survives because of rule, because of discipline, because every hand moves when commanded, every voice obeys when ordered, every punishment is given and accepted without question. Harsh, yes. But winter is harsh, and only equals can stand against equals. Tomorrow, attention will turn outward again, to the ships hauled ashore and veiled in hides, waiting for spring. Tomorrow, we will walk among their silent hulks, the dragon prows half buried in snow, dreaming of seas they cannot yet touch. But tonight, here in the hall, we see how discipline binds the people as tightly as ropes bind the timbers of a ship. They endure, because they obey. The hall lies hushed beneath its smoky roof, discipline settled heavy as the furs across weary shoulders. The fire burns, the guards pace, the coughs rattle in the dark. Yet always, beyond the walls of the camp, something waits. Not wolves in the trees, not raiders lurking along the fjord, but the very beasts that carry these men and women here in the first place, their ships. Come with me now, out through the heavy gate, across the snow-packed yard, and down toward the shore. The fjord gleams black beneath a skin of ice, the tide slow, the water silent. Along the strand lie the dragon ships, once proud upon the waves, now pulled up on land like sleeping serpents. Their prows rise from the snow, carved beasts frozen mid-snarl, their long hulls cradled on trestles of stone and timber. In summer they cut across the sea like arrows. In winter they dream. The work of hauling them ashore is done in autumn, before the first ice closes the fjord. Picture it, men waist-deep in water, ropes thick around their shoulders, straining as they drag the ships upward. The hulls groan, timbers grind, frost bites into flesh. They heave together, their boots slipping on seaweed-slick stones, voices rising in chants to keep rhythm. Slowly, the ships rise from the water, sliding over rollers of logs, pulled inch by inch onto land. Once there, they are braced, shored up, veiled in hides and turf. For winter is cruel to wood, and salt water hulls left unguarded would split and rot under ice. Now the ships stand silent. Snow drifts over their decks, hides stiffen like iron, ropes freeze solid. Yet even in slumber, the ships are tended. Men check the lashings, replace sagging hides, brush snow from the seams. Pitch is warmed at the fire, smeared into cracks, sealing out damp. To neglect a ship is to insult the very spirit of the camp, for these vessels are more than wood. They are freedom, raid, trade, escape. They are the promise of spring. Imagine walking between them now, the snow crunching underfoot. The dragon prows loom above you, their carved eyes glinting faintly in the starlight. Some bear serpents, others wolves, others the curling necks of beasts half remembered from sagas. In the longhouse, men boast of their ships, how many oars they carried, how fast they flew, what treasures they bore home. Out here, in the silence, the ships listen. The people speak of them with reverence. Each has a name, whispered like a prayer: sea stallion, wave cutter, storm crow. Names carry weight, for they are promises. A ship named wave cutter must not falter in surf. A ship named storm crow must not fear gales. The names live through the winter, passed from lip to lip around the fire, even as the ships lie buried in snow. There is ritual here, too. Offerings are made to the ships in winter, just as to the gods. A splash of ale poured at the prow. A strip of meat laid on the keel. Some carve runes into the hull, charms to ward off rot, to promise safe voyages. The ships are not dead things. They are companions, guardians, partners in fate. To treat them otherwise would be folly. And the people dream of them. In the longhouse, when the sagas turn to raids and voyages, men's eyes gleam. They picture themselves on the benches, oars rising and falling, spray stinging their faces. They hear again the creak of timbers, the drumbeat that sets the row, the roar of waves against the prow. Even children, half asleep under furs, dream of the dragon ships, their little fists curling as though gripping oars. The ships are absent from the water, yet they sail endlessly in the mind. But winter is long, and doubt seeps in. Will the ships survive the weight of ice? Will the hides hold against the storms? Men mutter as they walk past the strand, kicking at the snow, checking ropes again and again. A cracked beam, a sagging keel, a split seam, all could spell doom when the thaw comes. The ships are treasure, but also burden, fragile in their power. The camp's future rests not only in its stores of food, but in these silent hulks. Picture spring at last, the ice breaking, the fjords swelling with meltwater, the air alive with gulls. Men rush to the strand, tearing away hides, scraping frost from the decks. The ships groan as they are freed, as if waking from dreams too long held. Repairs are made in frenzy, tar boiling, nails hammered, oars sanded. The smell of pine pitch fills the air, sticky, sharp. Voices rise in excitement, in relief. The camp has endured, and now the ships will carry them outward again, away from the long silence of winter. But that day is not yet here. Tonight, the ships lie veiled, the snow piling high against their sides. They are skeletal shapes against the dark, reminders that survival is not only about today's hunger, today's fire, today's walls. It is about tomorrow's sea. Without the ships, this camp is trapped. With them, it is a seed waiting for spring. Step closer to one now. Lay your hand on the hull. The wood is cold, rough beneath your fingers, but steady. You can almost feel a pulse there, faint but present, like the slow breath of something sleeping. These ships are alive, in their way, and the camp lives because they do. And tomorrow, when the sagas rise again, when the dice clatter, when discipline is harsh and food is thin, it will be the thought of these ships that steadies hearts. The ships of spring. The promise that the ice will break, the seas will open, and the world will widen again. But tonight the snow falls, the hides stiffen, the ropes creak. The dragon ships sleep, and the camp waits with them. Tomorrow, attention will turn skyward. To the gods in the night, to sacrifices made for survival, to the prayers whispered in smoke and blood. Tomorrow, we will stand by the fire and watch offerings cast into its mouth, hoping the gods will grant mercy. But for now, we leave the ships in their slumber, dreaming of the sea they cannot yet reach. The dragon ships sleep under their winter shrouds, the fjords sealed in silence. The camp breathes in rhythm with the fire, its people bound by walls, by rules, by hunger. Yet survival is never only in wood and salt, never only in discipline or stores. In the long dark, when the wind claws at the beams and the dead are said to wander, there is one more power that must be honored: the gods. For the Vikings lived with them as neighbors, fierce, capricious, hungry, and in winter those gods press close. Step back with me into the longhouse as night falls. The fire burns high, fed with logs split and hoarded for such moments. Shadows leap across the walls, turning carved beasts into living things, making faces seem strange, eyes hollow. Men gather close, women sit with children pressed against their sides, and the skald's voice lowers. He does not speak of games now, nor of raids and laughter. He speaks of gods in the night. He tells of Odin, the one-eyed wanderer, who walks the earth cloaked in rags, his spear hidden, his ravens perched unseen. He speaks of Thor, red-bearded and storm-strong, whose hammer strikes against the frost giants that press at the world's edge. He names Freyr, who brings fertility, warmth, and the promise of spring, but who must be appeased, lest the fields remain barren under snow. These are not distant gods, locked in some far heaven. They are here, outside the walls, listening in the storm, watching from the trees. The people nod, their faces solemn, because they feel it. The silence of winter is not empty. It is filled with presence. Every crack of ice, every groan of timber, every sudden gust at the smoke hole feels like a sign, a whisper, a god's hand brushing near. To live through the dark is to live in constant negotiation with the unseen. So the offerings begin. A horn of ale is lifted, foam spilling down its side. The chieftain stands by the fire, raises the horn, and speaks the names of the gods. His voice is steady, carrying through the hall. He pours a portion into the flames. The fire hisses, steam rising, the smell of barley thick. Men and women raise their own horns, drink deeply, then pass them along. Even in scarcity, ale is given to the gods first. Always first. Meat follows. A scrap from the pot, sizzling as it drops into the coals. Fat drips, sparks leap, and the people watch intently, searching the smoke for signs. Did it rise quickly? Did it curl a certain way? Was the crackle sharp or soft? In these small things, omens are read, futures guessed. The gods rarely speak with words. They speak in flame and smoke, in the toss of bones, in the flicker of shadow. And sometimes there is blood. A goat, perhaps, led trembling into the hall. Its throat cut, the blood caught in a bowl. The priest, or the chieftain himself, dips a branch into the steaming liquid, flicks it onto beams, onto weapons, onto the people gathered. Red drops spatter fur and wood, dark against the firelight. It is blessing and bargain both. We give, so that you give. We bleed, so that you guard us. The smell of iron fills the hall, mingling with smoke. Children watch wide-eyed, silent. For them, this is memory in the making, proof that the gods are real, that they hunger. Outside, other sacrifices are made. At the base of a great pine, food is left, bread, meat, ale, for the land spirits, the hidden ones who dwell in earth and root. On the strand, near the sleeping ships, a small fire burns. Into it are thrown carved charms, runes etched on wood, prayers for safe voyages when spring comes. The flames lick them, consume them, carry the words upward into the night. But the gods are not only appeased, they are feared. Listen to the wind. Do you hear how it moans? The people say it is the wild hunt, Odin riding with dead warriors through the storm, their cries the howl of the gale. To step outside then is to risk being taken, swept into the hunt, lost forever. So the doors are barred, the fire piled high, and the people huddle close, whispering charms to keep the hunt from their roof. And in the silence that follows, when the wind stills and the snow falls soft, there is all. Step outside with me. The sky is black, but alive with stars, sharp as silver on velvet. Sometimes, curtains of green and red shimmer across it, the northern lights. The people gaze upward, hushed, believing them to be the armor of the Valkyries, riding to choose the slain. To see such lights is to feel the nearness of the gods, to know that the boundary between worlds is thin. The longhouse becomes a temple then, not just a hall. The fire is the altar, the smoke the prayer. Every voice lifted in song, every story told of Odin's cunning or Thor's might, every offering of food or drink, these are acts of worship. And though the people know hunger, though sickness prowls, though cold seeps into bone, they also know this, they are not alone. The gods are with them, in blessing and in terror both. And this faith is strength. When a warrior shivers on guard, he mutters Thor's name, and feels his hammer steady his hand. When a woman tends her sick child, she whispers to air, goddess of healing, and hopes for mercy. When the chieftain surveys the stores, weighing portions against days, he thinks of Odin's wisdom, hard-won at the price of his eye, and feels resolve harden in his chest. The gods are invoked not because they always answer, but because to name them is to remember that survival is more than meat and wood. It is will, it is meaning, it is belonging to something vast. Step back now into the hall. The fire blazes bright, horns are raised, voices chant. Smoke thickens, sparks whirl, shadows leap. The gods are present here, felt in the heat, seen in the flicker of flame. The camp is small, the night endless, but with the gods at their side, the people believe they can endure. Tomorrow, the talk will turn again to fear of men, to raids that may come, to enemies who might slip through snow and dark to strike without warning. Tomorrow, they will sharpen spears and check shields. But tonight belongs to the gods, to the sacrifices that bind men to powers greater than themselves. Tonight, the hall is more than wood and fire. It is a place where mortal breath meets divine hunger, where survival is consecrated in smoke and blood. And outside, the snow falls silent, covering footprints, softening the world. The gods are in the night, and the Vikings sleep knowing their prayers rise with the smoke, carried upward to the unseen. The gods have been fed. Their names linger in the smoke, their presence heavy in the silence that follows. The fire burns low, the blood on the beams has dried, and men lie restless beneath their furs. For though the camp has called upon Odin, Thor, and Freyr, those sacrifices have been made, another fear gnaws more sharply, one that no god can keep away. The fear of men. Raids. Step with me out into the night. The snow falls gently now, soft as ash, the forest hushed. The palisade rises dark against the white, its sharpened points rimed with frost. A guard paces along the inside, spear in hand, eyes straining into the dark. He hears nothing but the crunch of his own boots, the hiss of snow sliding off branches. Yet his hand tightens on the spear all the same, because he knows how quickly silence can break. The threat is not only wolves in the trees or spirits in the wind. Other men, desperate like them, prowl the winter nights. Outlaws, rival clans, raiding bands who see in this camp not brothers, but prey. Hunger sharpens every edge. Where one hall has a barrel of salted pork, another hall starves. Where one camp has sacks of grain, another gnaws bark. And in winter, theft is not dishonor. It is survival. Picture the terror of it. A sudden shout at the gate, a crash of axes on timber. Torches flare beyond the palisade, sparks rising into the night. The guards cry out, the camp stirs in panic. Warriors scramble for weapons, dragging on cloaks, seizing shields. Women snatch children, drive them toward the rear of the hall. Dogs bark, frantic, their voices blending with the clash of men. The night, moments ago so still, erupts with fury. Such raids come swift. There is no time for grand battle, no room for drawn-out sieges. A dozen men, maybe 20, strike like wolves, fast, brutal, gone before dawn. They hack at the gates, scale the walls, slip through shadows. If they breach, they seize what they can, meat, grain, weapons, even captives. Then they vanish into the forest, leaving blood steaming on the snow. The Vikings knew this fear well, for they lived by it themselves. They raided others, and so they knew what to expect. Every man in the camp could imagine it, because every man had done it. The rush of breaking through a door, the stink of smoke and blood, the cry of women, the thrill of snatching food from another's fire. To live by the raid was to know that someday, the raid would come for you. And so the camp prepares. Guards are doubled on storm nights, when noise can mask approach. Fires are kept low, so smoke does not betray their presence from afar. Spears lean ready by the longhouse walls, shields hung close at hand. No man sleeps too deeply. Even the children are taught, if the horn sounds, if the gate shakes, run to the center, stay behind the warriors, keep silent. Survival depends on order, even in chaos. But fear lingers, always. Listen to the guard again, pacing under the stars. His eyes play tricks on him. A shadow at the tree-line, was it a wolf? Or a man crouching? A crack of ice on the fjord, was it natural? Or a raider crossing? Every sound is suspect. Every silence is too deep. The weight of vigilance grinds on him until his breath comes ragged, his heart thuds too loud in his ears. Still, he cannot falter. One mistake, and the camp is lost. Inside the hall, sagas of raids are told not only as triumph, but as warning. The skald sings of villages burned, of men cut down, of women taken. He names heroes who held gates, who died with axes in hand, who fought until their last breath. Children listen with wide eyes, both frightened and proud. The sagas are not meant to comfort. They are meant to steel. To remind them that raids are not rare, not distant, but woven into life itself. And what of the aftermath? Imagine the camp that survives a raid. Blood frozen in the snow, gates splintered, bodies laid out by the fire. The survivors gather, silent, the air thick with smoke and grief. The stores are counted, less now, always less. Hunger sharpens its teeth anew. The dead are buried or burned, their names spoken into the night. Then the work begins, patching walls, binding wounds, guarding closer. Always guarding closer. Sometimes, it is not strangers who raid, but neighbors. A feud over land, over insult, over pride, carried into the dark. A cousin turned enemy, a friend turned rival. These raids cut deeper, for they strike not only the body but the heart. Betrayal is remembered longer than hunger, and its scars outlast the winter. And yet, in this fear, there is also strength. Raids force the camp together, binding them in shared vigilance. A man may dislike his neighbor, but when the gate shakes, he stands shoulder to shoulder with him. A woman may curse her rival, but when the horn sounds, she guards her children alongside hers. Raids test not only strength, but unity. The camp that stands together endures. The camp that fractures falls. Step once more outside the palisade with me. The snow is deep, the stars sharp, the silence heavy. Somewhere out there, beyond the dark forest, other fires burn. Other camps huddle behind their own walls, telling their own sagas, fearing their own raids. The north is a land of hunger and endurance, and men are as dangerous as winter itself. The guard shifts, stamping his feet, breath fogging in the air. His spear glints faintly in starlight. He listens, waits, endures. He knows the gods may bless them, but he also knows the gods cannot stop a raider's axe. That is his duty. His alone, and all together. And tomorrow, when dawn comes pale and thin, the camp will still be wary. The chieftain will inspect the gates, will remind the men to sharpen blades, will set scouts on the ridges. Because in winter, raids are not chance. They are certainty, only waiting their hour. The camp survives not by ignoring the fear, but by living with it. By folding it into the rhythm of watch and work, fire and story, hunger and hope. And in that endurance, the Vikings prove again that survival is not strength alone, but the will to stand in the dark and face what comes, be it wolf, storm, or man. Tomorrow, the chieftain's authority will weigh heavier, for order must hold against fear. Tomorrow, we will see how one man's rule binds all, how obedience becomes survival when the threat is constant. But tonight, under the falling snow, the camp waits. The palisade stands. The guard keeps watch. And the fear of raids hums low in every heart, as steady as the crackle of the fire. The guard's spear gleams faintly in the starlight. Beyond the palisade, the snow lies unbroken, the forest waits, and silence settles once more. Yet inside the hall, where the fire glows and the people huddle close, every man and woman knows that the camp survives by more than walls or weapons. Fear of raids hangs heavy, hunger gnaws, sickness prowls. Against all these, one thing binds the camp, the rule of the chieftain. Step back into the hall with me. The firelight throws his shadow long against the beams. He does not sit apart in some gilded throne. The Vikings were not kings of palaces. Instead, his seat is a high bench at the fire's head, draped with furs, his weapons close at hand. His presence fills the hall more than his body does. Every eye strays to him, every voice lowers when he stirs. The chieftain is the camp's anchor, the one man whose will holds back the chaos waiting beyond the door. His rule is not gentleness. It cannot be. Winter does not forgive softness, and neither can he. His word decides who eats first and who waits, who guards the palisade and who stays by the fire, whose quarrels are allowed to smolder and whose must be extinguished. His judgments are swift, and his punishments harsher still, for hesitation weakens authority. When he speaks, men obey. Not because they love him, though some may, but because his rule is survival itself. Yet his power is not only in command, it is in generosity too. A good chieftain gives feasts when food allows, spreading meat and ale so his people know loyalty is rewarded. He gives gifts, an armoring of silver, a finely worked blade, a cloak of fur, to those who prove themselves. These gifts are not frivolous. They are contracts. A man who takes his chieftain's silver owes his strength, his spear, his obedience. In this way, the chieftain binds his people to him more tightly than rope. Imagine him now, rising from the bench. His cloak is heavy, clasped at the shoulder with a brooch that glints in the firelight. His beard is rimed with frost from a watch just ended, his hands calloused from labor. He does not rule from afar. He works as they do, splitting wood, hauling timbers, standing guard. That too is power, to endure what they endure, to show that the chieftain is not apart from the people, but of them. Still, his authority must be absolute. Picture a quarrel. Two warriors clash, fists flying, insults hot. The hall erupts with shouts, laughter, cheers. Then the chieftain's voice cuts through, sharp as an axe. Instantly the noise falters, the fight stills. He does not beg, does not plead. He orders. His word is law, and both men know to disobey is to face more than punishment. It is to fracture the unity that keeps them alive. They lower their eyes, bow their heads. Discipline is restored, and the hall breathes again. But authority is not only for quarrels. The chieftain decides strategy, where to place guards, how to ration food, when to risk a hunt, whether to trust a stranger. His choices are heavy, for one mistake may doom them all. Yet he carries that burden because no one else can. In his silence, in his narrowed eyes staring at the fire, you see him weighing every decision, balancing lives like stones in his hand. And the people accept it. They may grumble in private, curse when their portion is small, mutter when punishment falls hard. But when the gate shudders in the night, when the wolves howl, when hunger bites, they look to him. His voice steadies them, his presence reassures them that order still holds, that survival is possible. Without him, the camp would splinter. With him, it endures. This rule is not democracy, nor tyranny. It is something older, born of need. The chieftain leads because he must, and because the people accept his strength. He is chosen by wealth, by lineage, by reputation, but above all, by his ability to keep his people alive. In peace he gives. In hardship he commands. In danger he fights first. That is what it means to rule in a Viking winter camp. There is ceremony too. At feasts he presides, pouring the first horn of ale, offering the first morsel to the gods. At sacrifices he stands foremost, blood spattering his cloak as he blesses beams and men alike. His authority is sacred as well as practical, woven into the fabric of belief. To disobey him is not only to risk punishment. It is to risk angering the gods, who see in him the order of the hall. And yet, his rule is fragile. Should he falter, should he prove weak, ungenerous, unjust, murmurs will spread. Warriors will glance to one another, weighing loyalty against survival. For while the chieftain's rule is absolute, it is not unbreakable. It endures only as long as the people believe he is worthy. In that sense, his burden is heavier still, to lead not by fear alone, but by respect. Step closer to the fire now. See how he sits, watchful, listening to disputes, judging when to speak, when to remain silent. His presence shapes the air itself. Men speak louder when they seek his approval, softer when they fear his wrath. Women glance to him when rationing food, seeking his nod. Children stare in awe, whispering his name in their games. He is more than a man. He is the spine of the hall. And when raids threaten, when sickness spreads, when hunger gnaws deepest, his rule sharpens. He orders who eats and who waits. He commands lashings for the thief, exile for the betrayer. He lifts his axe, not for show, but to remind all that his strength is theirs, that his will is the wall they stand behind. In these moments, the people do not resent his authority. They cling to it, for it is the one thing stronger than winter's chaos. Yet in quiet hours, when the fire burns low and most sleep, he is only a man. His face lined with worry, his eyes shadowed with fatigue, his hands trembling slightly as he pours the last horn of ale. Leadership costs. Authority burns as fiercely as hunger. But he does not falter, because he cannot. If he bends, the hall breaks. And so he endures, carrying the weight alone, as silent as the snow piling against the walls. Step outside once more. The camp lies under frost, its walls bristling, its ships sleeping, its gods watching. At its center, the hall glows faintly, the chieftain seated within, holding it all together. His rule is not written in laws, not carved in stone. It is spoken in commands, enforced in blood, carried in the hearts of his people. Harsh, unyielding, necessary. The rule of the chieftain is the spine of survival. Tomorrow, winter itself will become the adversary again. Not hunger alone, not sickness, not raids, but the season as destroyer and teacher both. Tomorrow, we will walk deeper into its lesson, to see how winter shapes not only the body, but the spirit. But tonight, we leave the hall knowing this: the people live because one man rules. And he rules because the north demands it. The chieftain sits steady at the fire's head, his will binding the hall, his word holding back the slow creep of chaos. Yet even his strength, even the sharpest axe and the highest wall, must bend before a greater master. For here in the north, the true ruler is not man, nor clan, nor even the gods themselves. The true ruler is the season. Winter. Step outside with me, beyond the smoke-thick hall, beyond the palisade bristling with frost, and stand in the night. The cold presses close at once, a weight that gnaws at your breath, stiffens your fingers, makes your eyes water. The snow stretches endless in every direction, smooth as polished bone. The fjord lies locked, its ice groaning faintly, shifting like the back of some vast beast. Above, the sky is hard with stars, sharp enough to cut. This is winter, not a backdrop, not an inconvenience, but a trial. A test that spares none, that shapes all. For every soul in the camp, winter is the adversary and the teacher both. It strips away comfort, leaving only what is necessary. It pares men down to their core, revealing who can endure and who cannot. Hunger sharpens them. Cold hardens them. Fear steels them. Each day endured is a lesson written in frost. Think of the simplest act: waking. You stir in the longhouse, breath fogging the air, straw damp beneath you. Every muscle aches with cold. Your cloak is stiff with frost. To rise is agony, yet to lie still is worse, for the cold creeps deeper the longer you rest. Already, winter whispers, "Will you move? Or will you yield?" To rise is to answer the trial, to begin the day. Work follows, always work. Fetching wood from the piles, breaking ice at the stream, carrying buckets until your arms ache. Each task is a battle against numb fingers, against wind that steals your breath, against snow that clutches at your legs. In summer, these tasks would be nothing. In winter, they are ordeals. Yet they are done, because the camp depends on them. The trial is not only hunger or sickness. It is the endless grind, the wearing away of body and will alike. And in this grind, men and women alike learn patience. No storm can be stopped, only endured. No night can be shortened, only survived. To rage against it is useless. To endure it is wisdom. That is the trial's teaching, not defiance, but resilience. The warrior who can swing an axe is nothing if he cannot also wait, cold and still, through hours of storm. The mother who can feed her child in summer must also soothe her through nights when the pot holds only thin broth. This is winter's forge. There are darker lessons too. Imagine the night when the stores run low. The pot is emptied, and still hunger growls. Children cry softly, their voices muffled by furs. Men sit in silence, their faces hollow. Then the chieftain measures out portions smaller still. The people accept it, though their eyes are shadowed. To endure hunger is to learn sacrifice. That survival means less for each, so that all may last. To give up comfort, to swallow emptiness, to carry on, that is the hardest trial of all. Winter also teaches humility. The strongest warrior may fall ill, his breath rattling, his body weakened. The friendliest elder may outlast him, enduring quietly, steadily, while others falter. Strength alone does not decide survival. Cunning, patience, endurance, these matter more. Winter humbles all, reminding them that the frost is greater than flesh, that no axe can strike it down, no boast can drive it back. Yet the trial is not cruelty alone. There are moments of beauty too, gifts offered even in hardship. Step with me beyond the wall at dawn. The sky glows pale, then bursts with color, pink, gold, violet spreading across the horizon, reflecting off snow and ice until the whole world seems aflame. The people pause in their labors, breath catching, eyes wide. For a moment, hunger is forgotten, fear silenced. Winter shows its face not only as destroyer, but as wonder. To see such dawns is to remember why they endure, because life, even in hardship, can still astonish. And there are nights when the northern lights ripple above, curtains of green and red swaying across the black. The camp gathers outside, their voices hushed, their hearts thudding. Some say the lights are the Valkyries riding, some say they are the gods' shields flashing. Whatever they are, they remind the people that they are not alone, that the trial is shared, watched, perhaps even blessed. In this way, winter is both enemy and guide. It demands everything, strength, patience, obedience, but it gives something in return. Those who survive it are changed. Hardened, sharpened, tempered like steel in a forge. A man who has endured a northern winter fears little else. A woman who has fed her children through such nights carries strength deeper than muscle. Winter marks them all, shaping not only their bodies but their spirit. And beyond the camp, winter's trial shapes their world. It is why the Vikings spread outward, seeking richer lands, softer climates, easier harvests. It is why their sagas sing not of gentle days, but of storms, battles, endurance. Their very culture is written by frost. The trial of winter forged their hunger for more, their boldness to sail seas, their will to carve out survival wherever they landed. Step back inside the hall now. The fire glows, the people huddle, the chieftain broods. Outside, the snow presses close, the silence deepens. But within, the lesson of the season lies: endure. Always endure. The trial is not yet over. The days stretch long still, the nights longer. Yet each day survived is another victory, another proof that they are stronger than hunger, than sickness, than fear. Tomorrow, the winter will give its final lesson. Tomorrow, as the season's weight presses hardest, as the camp looks toward the faint promise of thaw, we will see how the shadows of frost linger in memory, how winter itself carves marks on the soul that lasts beyond the season. Tomorrow, we will walk into the conclusion of this journey, to stand in the shadows of the frost, and see how they shape not only this camp, but the Viking spirit across Europe. But tonight, as the fire crackles and the snow falls, know this: winter is no season. It is a trial, and those who endure it carry its mark forever. The fire burns low now, a thin glow in the pit, sparks drifting upward like weary souls. Around it, the hall lies quiet, men and women bundled close in furs, children tucked into straw, the old breathing softly in the shadows. Outside, the snow presses against the walls, the wind sighs across the fjord, and the night feels endless. Yet within this silence lies a truth: the winter is nearly done. Its lessons, cruel and unrelenting, have been carved into every body, etched into every mind. And when the thaw comes, when the fjord cracks open and the ships stir in their veils, those lessons will not vanish. They linger. They always linger. These are the shadows in the frost. Step with me one last time through the camp. The palisade stands battered but unbroken, its posts scarred by storm, its watch platforms worn smooth by countless pacing feet. The longhouse roof sags under the weight of snow, its beams blackened by smoke, its walls creaking with every gust. Yet it stands, and because it stands, so too do the people. Survival is written in wood and iron, in rope and hide, but also in the invisible bounds of discipline, of story, of faith. Everywhere you look, winter has left its mark. A child coughs still from smoke and damp. A warrior flexes hands scarred with frostbite, 2 fingers gone but grip still strong. A woman kneels at the store pit, her face lined deeper than autumn left it, her eyes sharper, harder. These scars are not shame. They are proof. Proof that they endured. Proof that they were tested and did not break. The fire taught them warmth and danger in one breath. The stores taught them patience, the careful counting of days. The games and sagas taught them joy, laughter kindled against despair. The sickness taught them humility, that strength alone cannot shield against what creeps unseen. Discipline bound them, harsh but necessary, reminding them that survival is never the work of one but of all. The ships whispered promise through the dark, that beyond this trial lay open seas. The gods reminded them that the world is more than flesh, more than hunger, that it is also meaning, mystery, and awe. The raids and threats reminded them that fear is constant, that vigilance never sleeps. The chieftain taught them that one will can hold the hall together, if it is steady and unbending. And above all, the winter itself taught them endurance, the kind that carves spirit as surely as frost carves stone. Do you see it now? How this season shaped them. Why the Vikings who emerged from such trials carried with them a fire others could not match. To survive here was to be tempered like iron, hammered by cold, quenched in hunger, polished by fear. When they set sail in spring, when the dragon ships cut across open waters, they carried not only axes and shields. They carried the shadows of the frost. And those shadows were strength. Imagine the first day of thaw. Ice cracks like thunder, sheets breaking apart, sliding into the fjord. The snow grows heavy, wet, shrinking back from the earth. The air smells of rot and soil, sharp after months of cold purity. The people stagger from the hall, blinking into light that feels almost alien. Their breath still steams, but softer now, no longer torn away by cruel wind. They drag back the hides from the ships, scrape off frost, test the timbers. The dragon prows gleam once more, their eyes catching the sun. The trial is ending, but the shadows remain. The children play in the meltwater, splashing, laughing, their ribs still showing from hunger. The women scrub the hall, sweeping out moldy straw, laying fresh. The men mend weapons dulled by winter labor, sharpening for voyages yet to come. The chieftain stands by the shore, eyes on the fjord, silent. He knows what they all know, the sea calls again, and they are ready. Not because they are strong alone, but because winter has made them so. And beyond this camp, across the north, across fjords and forests, across islands and seas, other halls endure the same. Other fires burn, other children cough, other chieftains measure rations and meet punishments. All shaped by the same season, the same trial, the same frost. From these trials rose the Viking spirit, restless, fierce, unyielding. From these winters came the raids that shook kingdoms, the voyages that carried them to distant shores, the sagas that echo still. Step with me one last time into the hall. The fire flickers low yet steady. The smoke curls upward, as it always has. Around it, the people sleep, their bodies worn, their bellies never full, their dreams restless. Yet they live. They have faced wolves and storms, hunger and sickness, raids and gods. They have been tested, and they remain. That is the triumph, not glory in battle, not gold taken from foreign shores, but endurance. Survival itself. And so, as we leave them here in their longhouse, as the frost shadows fade into the coming spring, carry this with you: the Vikings were not only raiders, not only warriors on foreign coasts. They were men, women, children who endured winters that would have broken others. They were forged in cold and hunger, in fear and faith, in the endless night. Their spirit was not born on the sea, but in the frost. And now, as the fire dwindles, as the snow falls softer, let the echoes of their endurance settle. The trial has ended, for them and for us. Yet its shadows remain, whispering still across the centuries, carried on the wind, caught in the sagas, remembered in the silence of long northern nights. And so, as the night itself drifts toward dawn, may these shadows guide you gently into dreams,